さすがに相手か。私覚えてないんだよな、何ぼだったっけっていう。
あ、もうちょいだったか。
はい。
お願いします。
お願いします。お願いします。お願いします。
はいはい。よし。オッケー、先行だね。ハウスから。
オッケー。
よし。よし。始めました。はい。最後。よし。
はいはいはい。
よし。とりあえず7、8は大丈夫そう。一旦。最終的に9フットだった。
あ、そうだね、ここ。
あ、オッケー。はい。3センチぐらい近かった。
Welcome to the Autumn Gold Curling Classic, coming to you from Okotoks, Alberta. We are into Sunday's games. We are into a B and C side grind for all of these teams, and we have a great matchup for you this morning between an all-Japan matchup between Ueno and Yoshimura. I am Chelsea Carey, joined by Riley Backer. Riley, you were on the call this morning. Did you see anything different in the ice and in anything like that?
I think that we were discussing a little bit straighter than we would usually see on Okotoks ice. They said they were going to do something in between draws to hopefully get a bit more curl. So we'll see if that holds true. And nice 15-5 all game, including up until the 8th end. So hopefully we see that again, that nice, predictable, keen Okotoks ice that we're all know and love. So hopefully that holds up on this game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was here on Friday night, and the speed, it wasn't quite that fast, but it was the same the whole game. It didn't change at all, which is all you're looking for. No matter what it is, as long as it stays the same, that's what all the teams will be looking for. And yeah, I did talk to Dan Bubola, and he mentioned the same thing, that it did look a little bit straighter this morning. They think they've fixed it. In between games, they were playing with a few things, so he expects it to be a bit more like yesterday when we were seeing that bit more movement. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Pretty conservative start here for these two teams. Pretty happy to trade hits for now.
Yeah, absolutely. In the game this morning, though, there was a little biter, just outside the rings biter that ended up coming into play with a freeze. So
oh, wow.
We'll see if the same fate happens here, but as of right now, pretty smooth sailing, easy blank end predicted.
These two teams, as we mentioned, both from Japan. They a little bit different in the rankings. I think we've got number 8 in Yoshimura, number 22 in Ueno, but they did play each other in that Japanese curling trials, and Team Yoshimura won that event and will be representing Japan in Milan Cortina. But interestingly enough, the only game they lost in those trials was to Team Ueno. So maybe looking to exact a bit of a revenge here from blemishing their perfect record.
Very interesting.
ちょっと早く切らないとなんか上がんないわ。
わかんない？
うん
OK 多分こうだな。
あ、OK。
And this will be Yoshimura's first Olympic Games, I believe.
Yes, it will. It's been
Fujisawa being
yeah, Satsuki Fujisawa. With the Olympics without her is going to feel weird, I'm sure, for them too. So this Yoshimura team has been knocking on the door for a long time. Japan has a lot of depth, actually, on the women's side, and a lot of really good teams. So it's tough when you've got a team like Yoshimura, a team like Fujisawa, who's been so dominant at those, Japanese playdowns for both the World Championships and the Olympics. So it'll be, I'm sure Team Yoshimura is really excited to get to experience their first games, so it'll be fun to watch and see how they do there.
Yeah, absolutely. When you see sort of a dominant force and then another team break through, it's exciting. I think about like Ross White and Bruce Mowat. That's another some of the best in the world, but always vying for that top spot. Bruce has been the representative, and we'll see. I think in curling it's always interesting when you get someone coming up and challenging sort of the established order.
Yeah, it's tough to be, in Canada we've experienced it a bit more often, but it's got to be tough for a Scottish team to be number 3 in the world and number 2 in their own country.
Yes.
Which is the case for Ross White right now, and hard to break out of the shadow of Bruce Mowat, despite, he actually has a pretty good record against Bruce, and they've won the slam, and all these things, and yet you're still kind of number 2. So I remember years ago, though, it was Silvana Tirinzoni right behind Miriam Ott, and it was always Miriam Ott forever, and then now we see Silvana go and win 4 world championships and all this stuff. And so usually once they break through, they do really well, but it can be frustrating to be that team that's kind of waiting for your opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always new ones. This game this morning with Schwaller, an up-and-coming Swiss team. So you always see that sort of overlap period, which is exciting before there's the changing of the guard.
Yeah, for sure. And then you get the factor in the Olympic cycle, so who's going to keep playing, who's going to hang them up or whatever. So that always makes it interesting, especially for Canada. I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the Canadian curling landscape after this season, after the Olympics is over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, nice.
So we were speaking this morning on the new Grand Slam of curling rule, limiting to 1 blank per game.
Yep.
Dan and I had a bit of chat about that, but I'm curious, as we're facing down a first end blank here, what you think about that new rule.
So I'm really interested to see how it goes. I do think something like doing something about blanks makes a lot of sense, just because. Oh, is it gonna stick? Oh, she got away with it. That was a little scary for a minute there. And it's one of those things where an end like this is even worse as far as a blank end goes, because it was that way from the beginning. Rock goes in, you hit it. That's what we don't want for the fans. It's boring for the people in the building. It's boring to try to attract new curling fans. It's boring. So we don't want that. In the men's game, it tends to not be this. It's not an intentional blank. It's, they throw a bunch of rocks in play and then they make a couple run doubles and all of a sudden it turns into a blank. But I still think they're looking to do something about the idea of blank ends, because if nothing else, the perception of it's no good. When you look at the line score and it's, 3-2, even if you didn't watch the game, you assume it was a boring game with all these zeros on the board. So I'm curious to see, though, because my concern with limiting the blank ends is, so say my opponent has used their blank end already and I need a force, then I'm just going to hit everything anyway. Because I'm guaranteed a force then, because they're not going to blank the end and lose the hammer. They're going to draw for 1. So my concern is all it does is change which team is being aggressive.
Right.
But they did try it at the Best of the West, apparently, and it went quite well. I heard a little bit of John Cullen and Matt Dunstone, who Matt's one of the organizers of that Best of the West event, and they tried it there, and they said it worked quite well as far as generating more offense. So I'm curious. I know the slams last year did the no back-to-back blanks, but it didn't really change the number of blanks in the event or the level of offense. So I don't know that that was successful, but I know that I get what they're trying to do, and I agree with it. I'm just not sure that taking the blank away is going to be effective, because all it does is mean that the team without the hammer then is going to play super defensive and get the force by just having no rocks in play. So I wonder if it's more an answer more like mixed doubles, where you not only can you not hit guards, you can't hit any rocks. No removing of rocks for a certain number of rocks in the end.
Right.
But I think we're a ways away from trying that. But I know Nick Sulsky, the czar of the Grand Slam of curling events now, he hates blank ends.
Yes.
So they will continue to play with it until they find something that, in his mind, fixes the blank end problem that we're seeing. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see in Edmonton if it does actually change the total number of blanks, or the total amount of offense. It will obviously change the number of blanks, because you can only blank 2 ends a game. Mm-hmm. But does it change the amount of offense we're seeing, or is the end boring because the non-hammer team is the team that's hitting?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but it's sort of reminiscent of the Pat Ryan put it in the forefoot and bang away.
Exactly, yeah.
The other team is for it, because if you don't have the hammer, you get to dictate
Exactly.
first rock in.
Exactly. So then the other team will throw a guard, but you still end up in the position where if you can make a run or a double or whatever and they don't have anything to hide behind, they're just going to play the hit, where typically it's the hammer team forcing that. It'll just be the non-hammer team that does it. So yeah, I'm curious, but I'm not convinced it's a solution, but I would love to be wrong. Like, I would love to see it, generate more offense, but we'll see how it goes. That's what I love about the slams, though, is that they're trying stuff. Like, they just go, okay, well, so last year we tried no back-to-back blanks, didn't really do much, so now let's try this. Like, they just keep coming up with, this is the issue we're trying to fix, or the challenge we're trying to overcome, and we'll just keep trying stuff until we find something that works, which is awesome. And we're seeing it. I mean, that's why we have 5-rock rule. That's why we have no tick. That's why we have all of those things, because the slams did it first.
And we see the successful blank attempt and an uneventful first end, but an eventful conversation.
次にエンド目フォースでタイトガード、高いよりは近い方がいいかな、ちょっと上げないと下がるね。上げだけかなとは思う。こっちはもう滑ってそう。あ、そうね。以外のパスだけちょっと気をつけて。そうだね。
After a reasonably uneventful first end, a wide open blank kind of the whole way, we are into the second end, and we've got action here early, Riley.
Yes, we do, and we've got a rock just slipping behind the tee line for the team with hammers, so that's a bit of a early Christmas present for
Yeah,
Yoshimura.
definitely. That's the only place, exactly the wrong place to put that rock. Worst case scenario for team Ueno on that one. So now going to be chasing a little bit after a pretty good shot by Yoshimura there. Looks like they're playing the freeze here, considering the tap now, which I think I like better, don't you? You want to move those rocks a little bit if you can.
Yeah, you want to push it back and just, at this point, that yellow back one is not your friend.
Oh,
so
no,
you want to get that moved out a little bit and create some space in the forefoot.
Yeah, you'd love to be able to kill this red rock at some point. So the further back you move that yellow, the more likely you're going to be able to eventually make a play on shot rock. Right now it's not really possible. So love to move these around a little bit. Can't afford to touch that guard, though. It looks like that's on the center line. So that's where, before we had the no-tick rule, this shot was no risk at all. Because if you clip the guard and roll off, it's great. You move them to two corner guards. Now with the no-tick rule, this becomes a lot more all or nothing. You cannot afford to touch that guard, but you also don't want to bounce off a mile, so it makes it much more precise. This one looks pretty close, though.
Totally agree. I mean, the tolerance used to always be if you're a little tight, you can roll on, you can roll to a corner, you move it off the center line, and now you absolutely can't do that. That'll end up as a 0. So
yeah, before it was almost better to touch the guard than it was to make the shot. You were pretty happy with that. Move them both to corner guards, or roll your shooter on and have a corner guard. Either way, you're pretty happy. And we used to see teams play that all the time. My teams played that. Rachel Holman made it famous with Lisa Weigel. And yet now, not only is that not a good result, it's a 0. Everything goes back to where it was. So you absolutely cannot afford to touch the guard. So as the skip, putting the broom down, and as the thrower, it just changes your sort of thought process a little bit while you're sitting in the hack.
yeah, absolutely. And there's a bunch of different tolerances you can think about, right? There's the broom tolerance. Can you afford to be a bit inside or a bit outside the broom tolerance? There's the weight tolerance. Can you afford to be a bit heavy, a bit light? And the way I like to think about it as a player is you're not thinking about how you're going to miss it, but if you're lining up or you're thinking about like, okay, if I can be top 12 here, but the call's top 4, you can throw it top 12 and have your sweepers take it for you.
Yeah.
And so it just changes the way that you think about the shot.
Well, and that's what makes it a little dangerous to me I mean, in that case, I think they had to play it that way. But what you run the risk of by doing that is that you double adjust. So the skip gives a little bit more ice because you can't afford to touch the guard. And then the player also maybe throws it a little harder or sets it a little more because they can't afford to touch the guard. And then you hit it on the high side or you miss everything or you roll off too far. Like, it just makes it so much trickier as we see a great shot there by Team Ueno, but Reds all go flying and sticks that yellow out in the wing. So they'll be really happy with that one.
Yeah, absolute beauty.
Just gonna hang around there.
Yeah, to your point about the blank ends not necessarily always looking like a blank. We had it earlier in the early draw and here as well. Quite a few rocks in play, and now we're down to a pretty simple structure. It doesn't always just look like the first end when you see a 0 go on the board.
Exactly, and that's so real curling fans don't mind ends like that because they're still interesting to watch, but that's not necessarily we're trying to attract a new audience for curling and all this kind of stuff. So having more rocks in play does definitely make it more interesting. And if blank wasn't an option, then rather than hit this open one for especially the team with the hammer, you might see them ignore it and go around this guard and try to set up too. So it would just, if blank was not a thing ever, you might just see the different kind of approach and a few more rocks in play. I keep saying mixed doubles, but if there's just it's never a wide open end.
Yes.
So how do we create that for 4-person curling?
And you also see bigger point swings
Yes.
in mixed doubles.
Big time.
You see, you're 4 down, 5 down. Like, that's not a safe lead.
No,
in
there is
mixed
no
doubles.
safe lead in mixed doubles. It's crazy. But I don't know that we're ever going to get all the way there because part of that is how short the end is in mixed doubles. With only 5 shots, you only have to miss 1 to give up a huge end a lot of the time. Where, with 8 shots, probably, you're not going to see quite the crazy swings. But if we could just make it so that there aren't wide open ends, then at least it's always interesting. What ends up being unfortunate is, like, and we see it all the time, like I said, in men's curling, where the early part of the end is super interesting. And then you get guys like E.J. Harnden and Mark Kennedy, and they come in and make these run back doubles, and then so does Bobby Lammy and Grant Hardy, and then there's no rocks. So for the last 3 or 4 rocks at the end, it's just hit, because they've killed us. So, like, how do we change that? Because they're just too good, basically, is the problem.
Yes.
It's the same as why we took the tick away. Everybody got too good at it, and we were like, this makes it boring. So now we take it away. So we got to figure out something similar, to sort of solve this challenge that we're having right now with blank ends being not very interesting to watch.
And it's just the nature of innovation and progress in sport. Like it was the same thing with the broom heads and the sweeping, right? People got too good and started to complain it was more of a sweeping game than a throwing game. And so modifications to the broom heads and the rules regarding that, like, I think sport is always going to fluctuate.
Well,
and
you're right, and there is lots of talk also about the equipment now being too good. So, like, some sort of limiting, and which is sort of what we did with the fabric on the broom head. I think you're going to see it with the foams. We've already seen one step in that direction, but we're not done with that conversation after this Olympic cycle. All of that, I think, is going to change as well, and there will be some kind of standardization of foams, most likely. I mean, I don't know that. That's speculation on my part, but I think that's the way we're going to see it go. And then, like, there's a lot of talk about we need to make the brooms less effective because they're doing too much still. And I don't think it's as big a problem in the women's game as it is in the men's, but it's definitely a problem still, even with the new regulations we put in place. I still think it's a bit of a challenge in the men's game.
Be interesting. A bit of a atypical setup for the team with hammer here. Center guard with the rock around it.
Yeah, this is a curl sweep for Team Yoshimura, trying to get this to come all the way to the nose. Beautiful speed control there. That shot's all about weight, and the if you throw the right weight, that's when you can really play with the sweeping. So that's where the directional sweeping comes into play. If you're a little bit heavy or a little bit light, there's not really a lot you can do. If you get the weight right, then you have a lot of playroom. Like that was quite wide, and it never looked like it was going to get to the nose, and they get on it to curl it, and then you're good to go. Or you could sweep it straight to get it by, and then curl it at the end and make it that way too. So it just makes your margin for error so much bigger if you get the speed right on those kind of shots.
Absolutely, and playing a lot at Okotoks, the broom weight ratio is so critical because if you're playing that kind of shot that requires weight, that's that nice hack type weight, and you overthrow it, it won't curl for you.
Yeah, so it's super weight sensitive?
Yes, very much so. Nicks the guard, but still will
Just
make contact.
Lost so much momentum, though, from that little kiss that didn't get it out of there. Yeah, which I think is good. You want ice that's weight sensitive because it penalizes, like, you should have to throw it well to make it, both technique wise and weight wise. You want that. So for me, I like ice like that, but it is one of those things, and certain ice makers are notorious for it. I remember Jamie Barassa for years, one of the best ice makers in the world, and he's Albertan, and so I played on his ice a lot here, and you better have the weight right. If you were 2 feet heavy, you were nowhere close. If you were 2 feet light, you were nowhere close. So I think that's good because it puts more pressure on the thrower and it rewards getting, doing things right. But you need to be aware of that as the team because it's, a lot of times it's as important as throwing the rock well is just having the speed right. Like it might not be your best throw ever. If you overset it a bit, that is okay if your speed's close because then you can carve it.
Yes. And I find when you are just playing that like hack weight, it's so easy to overthrow it because you're thinking about I gotta move this rock and it's a hit, and you really have to trust the speed and trust where you've put your broom.
Yeah, and I would suggest that especially on good ice like this that's fast like this, your tolerance on a hack waiter is to underthrow it. You have a better chance of making it if it's a little light with sweeping than you do if you overthrow it. So but that's hard to do, like you said, in your head. You're like, I'm trying to move this rock out of the house. So almost everybody's tendency on hack waiters will be to overthrow them. But if the ice is good, you actually kind of want to switch that in your head.
it was interesting in the game earlier. Jen Dodds had iced into the rock about 2 inches, threw an 11.5, and made contact and removed the rock. And like,
there you go.
With a good rotation and good sweeping, like you can really hold a rock quite straight even when you throw that quieter weight. You have to know that's what you're dealing with. But it when you trust it, like a lot of good things happen. But
for sure, but it's hard to do. In your head, you don't like it. So you sit in the hack and look at ice that tight, and you think, I can't possibly be throwing bumper at this.
Yeah.
So it can be a bit of a mind trick that you have to get over. But if you do, like you said, if you can just trust the broom and throw it properly, and trust your sweepers, which in the case of Jen Dodds and those Scottish teams are so good on the broom, that your sweepers can really save it for you.
So a bit of an aggressive call here. I like it.
I like it too. I think you have to switch at this point. You're going to be forced.
Yep.
So it's in the words of the great Russ Howard, if you're going to be forced, try to be forced to 2.
Yes, yep. Curling early here, but I think she'll be okay.
I think it's a little heavy. They got to go to get it by. Squeaks it by. Now does it stop in time? Oh yeah.
Gonna peek out the other side a little bit.
Came down hard in the house, but is shot rock. But yeah, you can see probably from the hack from your hack, you'd be in a better position
as
for this
a lefty.
one.
I'm like,
yeah,
you're
licking your chops with that one. Yeah, from my hack, it doesn't look as good. But
this is the spot they played earlier, though, right?
It curls, yeah, and we watched them carve it over, and so it's definitely makeable. It's probably from the right-hander's hack. You could see maybe a third of that rock, I'm guessing, not quite half, probably. But that's lots to make the shot, and they've thrown this spot a bunch, so they'll know the broom, they'll know the speed. I like her chances of making it, but not the easiest shot you could ask for.
And part of what I liked about Ueno's first call is that you're probably going to have to throw that draw on your second rock.
Yeah.
So you may as well get a feel for the path and get a sense of it so that when you're making it on your next one, you have a good feeling for it.
For sure, and it's just a smart call in many ways, but that is one of them, is that even if I am being forced, this is the shot I'm going to have to throw. So why wouldn't I want to have just throw it twice, know the speed, know the broom. I don't know if they tight iced that one a little bit, or if she was just a little bit like maybe soft on release, because it did really curl. So it'll be interesting to see if she takes the same ice on her last one, or if she takes a bit more. Will kind of tell us if she thinks it was the throw or the spot, but that really curled.
Yeah, seeing a little more curl. So again, we'll see what the release was, but looks like early signs are that it is curling a little more than the earlier draw.
But first, this needs to be made for Sayaka Yoshimura.
Let's see, I'm going to guess a 12.5 on the clock.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty close. You could get away with a 13, I would think, but... Well, this is a little bit harder than I expected for weight. Probably more like a 11.5, 12.
Gonna work.
Yeah, that'll do it.
11.8, so you were bang on.
Look at me go.
Yeah, bang on.
So this will be that exact same shot. This is a little bit more ice, I think, than she took before. You don't need to get tight to like on your first one, you're trying to make sure you're buried. So this is also a little bit different. You don't need to even touch the center line here. You could stay on that side. So as long as they think the speed is good, it's smart to take more ice. The only question is, if you go out wider, is the speed going to be different? But I would suggest, based on this, that they don't think it will be. And we've seen that in general in Okotoks, and certainly so far here in this event, that the speed is pretty nice across the sheet. There's not really a big concern about that, which is huge for the players to not have to, because that's just another piece of math that then you have to figure out. Well, if I take the same ice, we're going to have to sweep it for line the whole way, so then I have to throw it lighter. But if I take more ice, then how many more feet heavy is it?
Yeah.
And then it's just really hard to kind of get your head in the right place. Not touching this one so far.
No, but they're not sweeping for the backing, so suggests they think it will come down, but...
If it doesn't come down, then they should have been sweeping for the backing. I think she's okay, though.
Ooh, put the brakes on.
Oh, no, there it goes.
Wow.
So not terribly well managed there, and that will be a big steal of 2.
までは消えたから。
オッケー、そうなんだ。
ね、ちょっとずつだね。
よし。ソフトウェイトの街後半。
後半秒数？
オッケー。
はい、石大丈夫。
後半秒数で使うウェイトを変えようかなと思った。後半秒数にして使うウェイトを変えるって使うってこと。
Interesting to see a bit of an overthrow there. And you can see that happen sometimes when there is a rock in play behind. When you're throwing that shot, you know, at least for me, my headspace is always this is a draw to the button.
Yeah.
But when you do have the visual of having a rock there, sometimes the tendency can be to say, well, I can't be light. So if anything, I'm going to be there.
Yeah,
And
it's
then-
subconsciously sometimes, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
in your head you're saying, okay, it's just a draw to the button, but your body's saying, yeah, but.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they could have made that shot with the backing if they'd swept it earlier. So, and of course my Japanese isn't good enough to know what was being said back and forth, but it seemed like it was pretty quiet. The only one sweeper really hurts you there too a little bit. That your outside person is the one who would be communicating.
Yes.
And Team Ueno not having that extra person now makes that shot a bit tougher. But yeah, I mean, at some point as the sweeper, you just have to make your best guess and you hope it's going to stop, and then it just didn't. But they could have managed that to, you know, if you were worried about it, you could have swept it sooner and probably, you know, chunked off that back rock and gotten your single point. But big steal there for Team Yoshimura. So we'll see how. I'm a little surprised by the defensive start here. Maybe a delayed corner for Ueno here. I think if it was me, I would have been throwing the corner guard right away. But a delayed, there's still, and sometimes too. So you gave up 2 points, but if Team Yoshimura had the hammer and you give up 2 points, you wouldn't have thought much about that. So sometimes you rush to get it all back at once. You get too upset about the fact that you gave up this steal of 2, so you get super aggressive to try to get 2 back, and that's not a good move either, because typically it doesn't work out very well. So it could be a smart move here for them to be patient and play this as a delayed corner instead of just throwing the corner guard right away.
Yeah, just like get your feet back under you.
Yeah,
a little bit.
and you only need 2, so you're not desperate at all. You're not trying to play for 3. All you need is 2 back, and so you know you can easily get 2 back with that delayed corner rather than going crazy right away. And this way, you have more of the forefoot. I mean that rock is still in a good spot for Team Yoshimura, biting the top of the forefoot, but the first one was, you know, biting the button, so a lot harder to outdraw. So this way for Team Ueno, she does leave herself a little bit more space, both to set up 2 and worst case to draw for her single point.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw it in the earlier game, actually, a steal of 2, and then the team that maintained the hammer next end got their 2 back, right?
Yep.
So no need to panic.
No, it's not. It's definitely not panic time, but it can feel like it
Yes.
if you're not careful for the team that gave up. You know, you had a reasonably makeable shot for 1 and all that kind of stuff, and then so it feels like more than a 2-point deficit to Team Ueno right now. So you have to be a bit careful about managing that in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
石がこっちにあるように見える。
Interesting call. I'm always interested when the team does put the corner guard up. Are they then going to ignore the center rocks and go around their corner, or are they going to hopefully bring the corner back into play later and play to the middle? I find that's always an interesting strategy choice.
Yeah, you're right, because so often you see the corner guard thrown and never used. So my tendency is to think I want to go around it. But hitting and rolling to another corner, I sort of like as well, because you guarantee yourself some corner guards, and then you have, you know, you can roll either way on the rock later and stuff. And the problem with going around it now is that you're likely going to see a long guard from Team Yoshimura, and then you better make noise. Like you have to at least make the double, or else you're going to likely give up a steal. So I don't mind the call of roll to a corner guard, but the biggest thing is to stick your shooter. I think too often what you see is that call is to hit and roll to a corner, but they play it with peel or with firm, and then they roll out. Looks like she might be chasing the one in the house, actually, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's I think what the call was,
Yeah,
and
it
it will
was.
be executed.
Swept for it the whole way.
If maybe not enough weight, but that'll hang around almost like a back guard on that side. But
The challenge, though, is that you leave the center guard. Like,
Yes.
I think the result on I thought her first call was to hit and roll off the guard to a corner, which is what I would prefer. But you've opened up your scoring area now, at least. So, you know, even if this is made, if it's made really good and she rolls back, maybe not so much. But if they nose this for Team Yoshimura, for example, then now you've got the whole forefoot for Team Ueno to try to set up your 2, and this one's going to roll away. So it stays in the house, but now it's much more wide open. So in that sense, it worked out pretty well for Ueno. You're going to make this draw around this guard. I don't know if you can be shot and buried. But even if you're second shot and buried, it's not bad because that back 8-foot rock isn't a huge concern right now.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're the skip with hammer, you know, you get more nervous when you've got congestion in the forefoot.
100%.
You see opposition stones around, but they're all pretty manageable at this point.
Yeah, she has an easy shot for 1. So that's, I always say when you're trying to set up a what we would call easy deuce, like you're not going crazy for 2, but you want to. But you just want, as long as you have a shot for 1, then you, like, so you make sure that happens first, and then you try to set up 2, which is exactly what they're doing. Played some hits, played some more defensive shots to open up that forefoot and give themselves a chance at for sure having an easy shot for 1, and then you go around. But unfortunately, that'll be a pretty big miss from Team Ueno there, and it'll give Team Yoshimura a chance to put that pressure right back on them with a good come around here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shot that yellow that you kind of need to be in play to force. It doesn't need to be perfect, but if it's in play, you keep Yoshimura away from the center.
Exactly. Even if you're back, like just back T-line or something, and it's in there, it at least, even if they choose to go around the center, there's a lot more pressure on them because you have some chances to set up your deuce. Now, with it being where it is, it's going to be really hard to get a multiple point score here, and I would suggest that you almost have to switch back to let's just make sure we can score at all for Team Ueno.
Interesting here, because if they make that run back, they'll move a few inches one way or another, but there'll still be a rock on the center line, I would think.
Yeah, I don't know how far away you can roll. I would think they're trying to make this across the face, but still, you're right. You're not going to roll terribly far. This one's a little tight early. I think she got that started on release a little bit.
Maybe we'll get the 1 in the 8-foot.
Maybe.
Over the top.
Yeah.
But
too much curl. So pretty nice setup here for Team Yoshimura. Not a lot of pressure and an opportunity to really put some pressure on Team Ueno. Just keep replacing this guard.
yeah, and that's like something like this when you have a miss. You think, oh, it's easy, we're just throwing up a guard, but when you have the opportunity to really put pressure on, you want to make those shots as well as you can.
Yeah, the precision's really important on this one, even though you're in a really good spot. If you don't make this guard well, you hand it right back, kind of. So this one looks like it's going to be pretty good, trying to get it to curl as much as they could. Did leave a little chunk of that open with the in-turn.
Leaves the side that when you chase, you roll behind the corner, right?
The wrong side, yeah. So if you were going to miss that, you wanted to miss it on the over curl, not the under curl, so that the roll that Team Ueno is about to play would be away from that corner guard. So this is an opportunity here again for Team Ueno. Not easy. You can't see a whole lot of that, but quiet weight. We've seen them have pretty good speed control for the most part, and you might roll right in behind what's now a staggered guard.
And watch the center line here to see how much it's curling really hard across there. But you might just tick and roll behind your corner.
I think she's a little heavy.
Too much weight
a little
for
heavy
that.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah, 11.5.
Yeah, I think I would have liked that with less weight, to your point, because if you ever just chiseled it, if you threw hack 12.5 or so and you did exactly what she did, you might stop buried behind the corner guard anyway, so you wouldn't be shot rock, but at least you'd move the corner off and have second shot, hopefully. Now, as it stands, she may as well have not thrown it. We're going to have the exact same shot for Team Yoshimura. And the problem here, too, if if I'm Team Ueno, I'm starting to get worried about the easier draw as far as getting, full forefoot or a piece of the button is the in-turn draw, but those corner guards are maybe not in your way, but they make it tougher for sure. It cuts, like, that's kind of the line you'd like to take, is hitting probably half of that higher corner guard, but you can't. So you have to kind of go through this hole, and it'll make the sweeping and the management much more difficult and more important.
Yeah, and if you were ever to just bite the forefoot on the out-turn side, you just blocked that with where you pushed that guard, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So there's going to have to be some precision on the last couple rocks here for Ueno, but Yoshimura has the same opportunity to get the guard up.
Yeah, they'll try to get this one to curl a little bit more so that they don't leave that roll behind the corner with the chase.
Are they going right in here? On top?
Looks like maybe.
Because she had her broom right on top, like perfect freeze. But
Interesting.
I don't know if that was the call, but
I'm not sure why you would go in, but certainly it looked like that was I mean, if that wasn't the call, then she was 15 feet heavy, which we just don't see them miss by that much very often. So my guess is that it was supposed to be top 4, and she was just 2 or 3 feet heavy.
my opinion is that call takes some of the pressure off.
I agree. I don't know why. Like, to me, the guard, the ice, the speed, and this is just going to allow her to hit stuff in the house. Even if you made a perfect freeze, she just noses it, and now how do you not give up 2? Because she's going to have the same shot again. I don't love that call.
It also just, feels like if I'm Ueno, I'm taking a deep breath, a sigh of relief. It feels like a release of pressure because, you have something open right now.
Yeah, I think the way that I was taught to think through those shots is what would my opponent want me to do?
Yes, yeah.
And in this case, I think that if the call is to put it anywhere in the house, that Team Ueno is pretty happy about that call. What they don't want you to do is throw a guard, so therefore that's what you should do. Throw the guard. Whatever they don't want you to play is usually the right call.
Because if this plays out the way we expect it will, she makes the double, Yoshimura makes the nose hit, and then you have an open nose hit, whereas before we were just talking about you don't really have a draw, you might have to play a precision chase type shot. So, but maybe they say, you know what, force is great.
Yeah, they're happy with the force. So in that sense, I get it. It just seemed like an opportunity to put more pressure on. But yeah, if you're, the force was on for quite a bit of this end, and I don't really see that changing.
This is
She could make the triple here, but I don't think that matters because they still are second shot buried over there.
Yeah. 7-3.
Pretty good peel weight.
Yeah. Everything's curling just a little bit. Like, she made the shot, obviously, but they were sweeping that. It seems even the shots that they're throwing pretty hard have a little bit of movement here.
Yeah, it looks like it's just their release to me. Like, they're, you'll see that the top teams that play slams a lot and stuff have a bit of an outward motion on release, that little bit of a set, and it looks almost to me like Team Ueno, sort of when they put the handle on, it's almost a little bit inward. It's like a little bit of a set hook, so they're going to
like
curl.
off the back a little.
Exactly, yeah. So they're going to curl a little bit more, which my guess is that it's by design because they've done it on every shot. So, and on straight ice, it's a huge weapon actually, but on ice like this that curls, it can cause you some headaches a little bit.
That's where it just matters to know what you do and then do it consistently. It doesn't matter what it is.
No,
just have to do it the same and then compensate for it however you're icing your shots, right?
Yeah, and these teams know each other well enough that you would think that they would, they know how to read off each other's just based on like, okay, ours are going to curl more than theirs or whatever because they're playing each other a lot in the same country and all of that, obviously. So this will be the open hit for Team Ueno to get their single point after what looked like they could be in a little bit of trouble. There's still some pressure on here. You obviously need to stick or else it could be another big steal, but wide open on the nose, you probably got, 2 or 3 feet to roll to on either side and still be okay.
It's always interesting sweeping these for line because you can kind of keep your eye on the center line. So you can kind of predict what you think the skip is going to say based on how the rock is tracking against the center line.
Yeah, and the center line can actually be, sometimes the sweeper can tell before the line callers that it's going to curl based on they can see a little movement off the line before the person that's calling the line can. Not touching this yet. It needs to curl up a bit. I think it's okay.
It's a 9-6. It should be good.
Nicely done
Nicely
there.
done.
Makes the double for bonus points, and they'll get that single point on the board, but it will be Yoshimura with the 1-point lead and the hammer going to 4.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Autumn Gold Curling Classic here from Okotoks, Alberta. We are into fourth end action between Team Yoshimura and Team Ueno. We did see Team Ueno with a good open hit there to get themselves on the board, but they do trail by 1 and do not have the hammer. So if you're Team Ueno here, how do you approach this fourth end, Riley?
I think the big thing is you'd love to get a force here. You are hoping that if you get a force and you get your 2 in the next end, you're tied up. And it being an even end, Yoshimura is probably trying to score. So you might have the opportunity to get that force because they're not going to be playing a wide open end. But in my opinion, that red rock went a little bit too deep with the hammer.
I think it definitely did. I think you'd like to see that at most half forefoot. Even just biting the forefoot is pretty good. But yeah, I think that's a good point. You tend to want to think steal because you're 1 down without. You don't need to steal. Steal would be a bonus, but a force is all you're really looking for. You get your 2 and 5. Now you're playing 6 tied, and you know those. It's a 3 end game. So
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. I think that's smart. So you could have seen the corner guard here from, but I think that's probably to do with the being one up with. I remember a few years ago, we worked with Jason Gunlickson, who was the kind of the stats guru at the time, and it was all about game plan and odds and that kind of thing. And he said, I think the biggest mistake people make is not realizing how much trouble they're in when they're 1 down without the hammer, because you just go, okay, well, we're only 1 point down. But when you don't have the hammer, that's a full control situation for Team Yoshimura, 1 up with. If you're 1 up without, it's a no control. Neither team has that advantage. But so you are in a bit more trouble than you think. So for Team Yoshimura, choosing to be a little bit more defensive by going around that center guard rather than throwing the corner, because to your point, they need to make sure they can score, and then 2 is a bonus, where for Team Ueno, you're trying to get the force, and a steal would be the bonus.
Yeah, and it's always thinking about, again, it's very simple, but what is acceptable, what is great, and what is unacceptable, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the conversation that should happen between the ends, is what's our goal, what can we live with, and what would be the bonus. And that I'm sure both of these teams either had that conversation or have just played together so much. These Asian teams play so many events in a season that they probably just play enough games that they know what each other is thinking without having to talk about it a lot of the time. But yeah, that should be kind of how you approach every end, as from a game plan standpoint, is what's the goal, what's okay, and what would be a nice bonus.
And then, at the start of the end, you can be a bit optimistic around, okay, let's see if we can set this up. But at some point, I think the successful teams recognize when they're slipping into okay, what's acceptable situation, because at some point you have to take your medicine.
Exactly.
Right?
And what do we want to avoid?
Yes.
Is the other thing. Like, we really can't afford to give up 2. So then at what point do you bail?
Yeah.
And I think that's, to your point, that's what the top teams do really well, is recognize when it's time to bail and do that well. Because I think tendency for almost everybody is to stay with plan A a little bit too long, rather than bailing. It's probably often a shot sooner than you do it, and then you go, well, we should have actually peeled on, our first rock instead of the second one.
All the yellows could go here if it's made.
Could, for sure. It's close.
Wow.
Great shot.
Beautiful shot.
I always love listening to the Japanese teams. Nice.
Yes, yes.
It's hard to find people with better attitudes and sort of juju out there than the Japanese teams. They just seem to be having so much fun all the time. I'm always envious of that. They're giggling away and they celebrate and they high five each other, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I always really liked playing against them because it's just a bit of a joyful atmosphere, the way they approach the game.
Absolutely. I'm playing Yoshimura and Fujisawa both, and I think the attitude and the approach, it also just helps your curling. If you're in a mindset that's, solutions oriented and focused on the next shot and celebrating the wins, like, we care so much that it's easy to let go of that attitude, but playing with positivity and confidence, like, can have a real impact on the outcome of games too.
Oh, and just loose. They always seem so loose because they're laughing stuff off, and they're, where you get in trouble is where everybody gets frustrated and uptight and then quiet. Mm-hmm. And that just doesn't seem to happen to these Japanese teams, and it's admirable, honestly, because it's something that I've strived for my whole career, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that kind of the pursuit of that and not ever quite being able to get there. And they just seem to, it's sort of just part of the culture, and all their teams seem to have it. And every time I watch them, I just think, man, that's so valuable.
Yeah, I think the teams going quiet, that's deadly, both for, the vibes, but also communication is so important. And when you're not communicating, even like on a shot making perspective, you need to know what the weight is. You need to know what the line is. You need to talk after a miss. And, something that I like to think about is when you're communicating, can everyone on the team be from the perspective of, we're just trying to be successful. Mm-hmm. So when we're communicating, I'm not saying that you were down in weight because I'm trying to be difficult or blame you.
Attack.
It's like we're just trying to communicate information and hear it from the perspective of our teammates being helpful. And I think the teams that can do that really well and just see information as information have such an advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I always talked about it with my teams as taking the emotions out of it. Just be in learning mode. Why did we miss that? Mm-hmm. Was it the throw? Was it the weight? Was it the broom? Was it a spot in the ice we didn't know? Like just come up with a reason, and it's not anyone's fault. We just need to learn something from the miss.
Yes.
So as long as you can stay in that kind of mindset, and it's not personal and it's not emotional. It's just you're examining the facts. Okay, the fact is we threw in this spot we weren't really sure. I gave you ice I thought was right, and it curled more than I expected. Okay, so then the thrower doesn't have to change anything. I'll move the broom. Or, like, okay, you were a little bit heavy, but it also still ran straighter than I thought, so maybe you both adjust a bit. It's a little less weight and a little less ice. But it's not, no one's trying to your point, all we're trying to do is make more shots.
Yes.
So it's not about blame, it's just about information sharing and learning from it so that you can make the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that one, they looked at it for a long time, that yellow. I'm not sure if it's in or out. And that could very well play a reasonably large factor in how this rest of this end goes.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're Yoshimura, you would have to be pretty confident that it's out, right?
Yeah, if there's any uncertainty and like you rather than throw a blank, you would just take your single point,
Yeah.
because you're reasonably happy to score in an even end with the hammer anyway, especially with a 1-point lead. So yeah, I don't think they'll take any risks, but if you did know it was out, then you would still prefer the blank to a single point. So if this continues to go this way, we'll find out what she thinks based on what she plays on her last one.
Would love to make the roll here.
Don't want to roll out the other side, though, if there's any chance that one's in.
True. You know what's interesting is I've been seeing more than I ever have in an open end, if you're getting down to skips rocks, that the team without the hammer will freeze on the opposition stone to try to prevent the blank.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that very often, but I've seen it now twice in this event where they don't want to give up that straight blank, and so they play the straight freeze.
If you'd rather give up 2 than blank, which in a lot of cases you would, then it makes sense. You tend to get sucked into the idea that like you want to kill the opponent's rock because you don't have the hammer. But there are lots of instances where a 2 is preferable to a blank, so then you have to switch to what feels like a really aggressive shot, but it's not actually. It's just trying to, if you give up 2, you give up 2, but you really don't want to let them blank. Pretty nice roll there.
Yeah.
Not quite all the way in behind, but makes the chase a lot harder.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you don't catch enough of that red, you might be pushing it into that back rock, right?
It could be, yeah, for sure. I think it's probably like, what, a third to a quarter with this kind of weight to jam it, but it's definitely possible.
It just changes the precision a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. And you just can't see that much of it, so it looks a little ugly from the hack. But this is a spot we've seen them throw a lot. In the second end, they played this out turn a whole bunch with these quiet weights, so they should have a pretty good idea. But you do have to be careful here because there's just really not. It's kind of an all like you just have to throw it to make it because there's no tolerance. Ticking the guard's no good, hitting it thin's no good. So just throw it and try to make it, which sometimes is nice. It actually lets your brain have a bit of a break, and you don't overthink it. You just throw it and hope that it works out.
I've had that. I'll come down to the other end, and my front end will go, "What's the tolerance?"
There is none. Yeah.
I just have to make this shot.
Yeah.
Working hard on this one. Oh, it looks close. Gonna turn around and try to curl it a little bit.
Too thin, I think.
Ooh, that's jamming.
That is unrolling too far, maybe. Yeah, I think so.
So, twos and.
So you could choose to go open side here. That was my first thought with the intern. Just split the rings. By doing this, you bring in a potential of, if you're a little deep, she could freeze to it. If you're open, she could hit and roll under, and then your 2 goes away. So,
even if Ueno wants to be very aggressive, they might even play the freeze if it's a nice shot. I don't think that they will, but some teams might.
Yeah, well, I think I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see it. I mean, you could, if you think you have a chance to force them to 1 by making the draw harder. If you feel good about the draw weight, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're afraid of that at all, you can just hit the wide open one, but then it's a for sure deuce. So, interesting call here. I think, to me, the reason that you'd play this is because you're worried she's going to play it if you go to the wing. But I don't think she would. I think she would hit. But these teams know each other better than I know either one of them. So my guess is that they're thinking if they go to the wing, she'll just wrap around this guard.
Right. It is curling a little more than this morning's draw where we see where that broom is into the 12 foot a little bit.
Yeah, and that's about where we saw them throw their draw to the button for the hammer as well, where earlier today the draw to the button for hammer was about 3 inches into the 8 foot. So it does seem like the ice crew here at Okotoks has fixed that little bit of straightness that we saw, which is pretty impressive given that they had all of an hour to make some changes in between draws here. But I mean, great conditions all week, but this is nearly perfect with your sort of 14.5, 14.7, and 4.5 feet of curl is, to me, the perfect ice. So we are going to see this one go a little deep, which is exactly what we were talking about, and danger now for. Not danger, but your 2 might be awful tough. You might even have a hard time scoring if this freeze is made really well.
Yes.
That's one where you'd like to see the sweepers go, it's not going to stop in time, and just pound it and get it further back so that there's room for two for sure.
Yes.
But it can be hard when you think,
Maybe
there's a
it'll
chance it might
stop.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
it's a bit, you get stuck in purgatory a little bit on those ones sometimes.
Yeah. Some of my coaches have been like, if you're praying for it to stop, then
Sweep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting. That rock was also did not get the sweepers involved, right? It was
Oh, yeah.
it was thrown there.
Yeah. They might have even been thrown a foot further than there. Like they
Yeah.
didn't touch it the whole time. So I imagine it curled in the house a little bit. So we're seeing even a little bit more ice here for Ueno. So that would suggest that what we were talking about before with the releases is maybe true, that there's just curl a little bit more, the way that they put the handle on the stone, because she's taken probably 2 brooms more, at least a broom more ice than Sayaka Yoshimura just did.
Also, probably gonna have the sweeper involved would be my guess, and
Yes.
it'll just curl a little more. So
Yeah, and you can manipulate it. So I'd rather on ice where you can carve stuff, which isn't all ice surfaces, but that seems to be reasonably effective here. Then you just don't want to take too little ice, because then you're going to have to sweep it for line, no matter what the weight is. This way, if the weight's okay, then you can curl it, you can keep it straight, you can kind of play around with that. This looks pretty close.
yeah, 14-3 on the red, 14-7 on this one.
Over curling, if anything.
That's a nice shot.
Pretty good, because it's hard to pick it. Like, if that red stone wasn't where it is, the one in the 12-foot, then you'd just pick it for 2. But it's there to pick it for 2, but it's really thin.
You gotta
to not-
whisker it.
Yeah, it's like a almost play to miss it and hope you tick it, which you can't really afford to do because you can't give up a steal. So pretty good spot there, I think.
点取る感じか、このぐらい
It's also probably awkward from the hack, I would assume, from the right hack. But
Yeah, you're crossing it again. You would have an advantage on this one because it's not a nice spot to have to throw with the out turn when you can't. That rock probably looks pretty much fully buried from the right-hander's hack here.
Yeah, I mean, if you are gonna play the peel weight and you can only see as much as you can hit to not jam it, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it also, you could play it with quieter weight and try to just hang your shooter around. But I do think that they're gonna elect to throw this pretty hard.
Yeah, it looks like you could maybe hang around if you threw like a hack, but then you also run the risk of over curling a little bit and running it into the back one, which there's not a lot of risk given that yellow's shot already. So it's not like you're promoting them to shot rock, but you do want to make sure you score 1. So I think a little bit more weight might be the easier way to do that. If you happen to pick it thin enough, great, but if you hit it a little too thick, you're still going to get your 1.
Yeah, and when you throw it with weight, if it makes contact with that back red, they'll both go, right?
Yes,
So that
yeah.
is also the advantage of throwing it a bit harder. Can be tricky down the center line. Any kind of away action can run backwards, so
Yeah, I'd suggest if it was me and when I let this go, I would want to be saying hard line.
yeah. It's moving back on the center line.
It is backing up already a little bit.
It's still backing up.
It needs to. I think she's close. Get by.
Ah.
Oh, no, it won't. So out of nowhere, that'll be a big steal for Team Ueno, and we are all tied up after 4. Team Yoshimura will have the hammer going to 5. Well, it certainly didn't look like a steal for most of that end for Team Ueno, but a little bit of a miscue by Sayaka Yoshimura on her first one, sliding that little bit deep, and then a great freeze, and we are all tied up after 4. It's got to feel to Team Yoshimura like they got robbed there a little bit.
You called it, though. You did call it, going around the center versus going wide. And again, we don't know the game plans of these teams well enough to know if she had gone wide, if Ueno would have sunk one around, but either way, went just a little bit too deep, and now we're all tied up.
Yeah, it's pretty easy from back here. I haven't missed a shot yet since I've spent my time in the booth instead of on the ice. So that's a nice bonus. But yeah, I mean, that was the only way you risked it. So even if you go to the open side and she goes around, the guard was long enough, and they've played a lot of quiet shots, and then it's for 3. So, if I'm Team Yoshimura, I don't mind that either. So yeah, definitely a little surprised by the call, but if she put it in the top of the forefoot, we're not having the conversation, because she's going to get at least 2 then that way. So just that little bit of a miscue. It's not necessarily the wrong call if you make it, but I wonder if it was worth the extra risk that goes with going around that center.
Another advantage of commentating is I'm not freezing.
Yeah, yeah. As the skips, we're like cozy in here on the couch, and it's a comfortable seat, and I'm not freezing my butt off. Yeah, it's feeling like a pretty good spot to be, honestly.
Yeah.
Fairly conservative start to this 5th end. We did see that guard go up, but it's been an exchange of hits since then. For Team Yoshimura here, pretty happy to blank the odd end and keep the hammer going to 6. So if I was Team Ueno, I would be thinking, trying to force the issue a little bit, but it's hard to ignore this open rock too, because you don't really want to give up a deuce either. Good
to just stick that and just spun in enough to be on the rings here. Yeah, this game has been in general a bit more open, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's it seems like a bit of cat and mouse. It's like who's going to blink first kind of. Neither team's gone terribly aggressive, and we've ended up with rocks in play a few times, but not super aggressive for sure by either team. And again, we know how familiar these teams would be with each other, so it seems like that's a calculated plan, and whether it's a game plan specific to this opponent or if it's just in general, they've certainly come in with that being the idea that we're going to keep it a little bit more open and not take too crazy of chances, and see how it plays it at the end. It'll be interesting to see. Sometimes you see that shift for 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Keep it close until the end, and then once you get down to kind of the nitty gritty, then you'll see, especially the team with the hammer, take more chances.
It'll be interesting if this is made, if Yoshimura just peels and says we're going to try to get a miss and then get our blank, or if they'll try to generate something in the rings. But you've got to think that they're playing for the blank if they can get it.
Yeah, I would think they'd try a chase, and if they clip the guard, it's okay, but I agree. They seems like their game plan is to come in and try for the blank, so I imagine you'll see kind of a soft weight chase here, and if they clip the guard, they clip the guard.
With the idea maybe that you roll to a corner if you clip the guard, like try to play that kind of weight.
Or even spin your shooter in and then force a hit, and then at least it's wide open, right? So I think, if you could ever make this chase and roll away, Ueno's going to chase it, so that's plan A. But if you clip the guard, you could either roll to 2 corners, which isn't bad, or roll your shooter in, which plays pretty well as well. So I like this call. Some good options here for Yoshimura. That rock is pretty much fully buried, though, so not an easy shot.
This is looking good. Enough weight to remove it, maybe. Should be okay.
Really nice. She got to a lot of that. That curled a fair bit past that guard. Does give Ueno a chance to maybe get underneath, though, based on how much Yoshimura's curled, and we have seen Team Ueno with that little bit more curl just based on how they throw it. So if you could ever get a little bit low and roll this behind the guard, again, just putting that pressure back on Team Yoshimura.
Agreed. Went to school in the last one. You should know how this is going to run. Sometimes it's really important to manage the break point, but I'm noticing on this ice, nothing seems really to be snapping early.
Yeah, I think that's what you see on slam ice with that late curl. It's hard to replicate that on club ice. Even club ice that curls as much as a slam, which this does. You're seeing outside edge of 8 foot. It's a more gradual curl, where on arena ice on the slams and even the Briar and the Scotties, what you see is that snap.
Yeah.
Hold, and then 3 or 4 feet before the hog line, it just starts to go sideways. So then it's really about managing break point. To your point, this gradual curl makes that a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the benefit in the slam of being able to get at some rocks you might otherwise not be able to, but you have to really manage your sweeping.
Yeah, once it starts to curl, you're dead.
Yeah,
so you have to manage it much differently. Where this one, you see them, we've seen them all game be kind of on and off, on and off, on and off. At a slam, you don't often see that. You're either fully sweeping or you're not touching it because of that snap, like inherently with that late snap. It's just, you can make shots that aren't there, but also the wide open shots can be a lot harder.
Yeah.
Rolls actually a little too far there, if anything, but at least forces the change of turns.
Interesting. Still chasing. Looked maybe like she was going to call a freeze, but still chasing, which I think Ueno, if it's a blank, they would obviously prefer to force here, but
I think it's a situation where you'd rather give up the blank than give up the 2.
Agreed.
So then you don't, that would, in and of itself dictates that you wouldn't freeze. If you have the chase, you throw it.
Yeah, if you're trying to tie break between 2 shots, you kind of have to think about which outcome you're more willing to accept.
Which do you prefer? You don't love either one, but which one is more acceptable? And in this case, that would be the blank.
And gorgeous throw there.
Really nicely done. Couldn't make that much better than that. We did see basically this exact same shot, though, from Team Yoshimura before, with it being almost completely buried. Both teams actually made this before, so they'll have a pretty good idea, but made it as hard as they could have. I think that's as good as Team Ueno could have really done with that roll.
And a little less space past the guard because it's a few
higher
rocks
in the
higher,
house,
right?
Yeah, you're right. Which sounds like not a big difference, but makes a huge difference with that gradual curl. It's not going to come in sideways, so it has a little bit less time to curl once it's past that guard.
Another thing about it being a few rocks higher is you have to push it a bit further.
And they won't. So force is on now here for Team Ueno. The good news for Team Yoshimura is that they shouldn't have a hard time getting their single point, but I imagine you might see them switch to maybe trying to set up a skip's deuce here on Sayaka Yoshimura's first rock.
Yep. Yeah, I would think that Yoshimura won't be chasing.
Agreed. Yeah, I think you're probably going to see her throw a draw around that center guard.
Interesting, though. It seems like the rocks aren't safe. Like, even if she makes that really nice draw, they have to be higher in the house, I think.
Yes, I think you want to be just shot. So, and I think that's what Team Ueno was talking about right now. It seems like you would just come down and nose this, but if you nose it, then you leave her. She could be just full 8 buried, and it's a much harder chase. If you roll in to just kind of edge of the forefoot, she's got to bring her draw in further, which then makes your chase easier. So smart to have that discussion, assuming that that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Again,
we can only imagine.
Yeah, my Japanese is lacking severely, so I don't know for sure, but that's my best guess. Don't really want to roll buried because then you leave her some backing to freeze to. But if you could roll this a rock or two, I think in a perfect world you're almost biting forefoot.
You're just squeezing the scoring area a bit.
Exactly. And making her have, because to your point, the only way that you can make that chase difficult is by leaving it high in the house. So you limit how high in the house she can leave it without being shot. Oh, this one's curling early though. Oh, they got to go to get a piece of this.
I think they've got a piece.
Yeah, just a piece.
But let him off the hook there.
Yeah, the blank comes very much back into play now. So a bit of a gift there from Team Ueno to Team Yoshimura. We'll see Sayaka Yoshimura chase this back 12-foot rock and try to stick somewhere, and then the blank is looking quite likely.
Interesting where they're taking the broom. Middle of the rock. Oh, that's a little more ice than originally. But they're probably throwing a good 10, 9.5 at this rock. They're not going to play around with it too much.
Yeah, I would think probably 9, even 9, 9.5. But the ice isn't curling a ton with weight, so I'm sure you could make it with a 10 as well. And you have a fair bit of room to roll too on the center line side. So what you don't want to do is be wide on this and hit the wide one. So I think smart to throw a little bit more weight, take a little less ice, take the curl out of it, and just try to hit it somewhere near the nose. But it would be hard to make this with, say, a bumper board kind of weight because of that wide red guard. I think you'd see them play the other turn in that case.
And how important is it to stick this rock?
Oh, wildly important. Like your blank is going to go from being very routine and I would say made 95% of the time to likely very difficult and made more like 40 or 50% of the time if you let them draw around the center guard. Nicely done there.
9-3, so we were right.
Yeah.
Good firm weight.
So going to look for the little roll behind here. I think no matter how well she makes it, you still will have the blank opportunity, but puts a little bit more, the visual looks a little worse for Sayaka sitting in the hack with not being able to see any of this rock. So I'd love to roll this just a little bit behind the center guard if she could.
Yeah, the advantage to Yoshimura of it being in the back of the house is that you've got a ton of room to curl past the guard, but you still want to make her throw that rock.
Definitely.
Looking a little bit wide, but I think it'll come up to nose.
Trying to curl it now. It'll just be on the nose, so blank attempt here for Sayaka Yoshimura. Can see probably a good 3/4 or so of that rock.
This is the first right-hand
I
advantage
was going to say
I've
the
seen.
first time, yeah, the first time it's advantage would be advantage to me instead of you.
Yeah.
So after a pretty big mistake by Team Ueno rolling out there, we will see this. Sayaka Yoshimura trying for the blank here in 5 to maintain that hammer going into 6, tied. Love to hear clean. And she will make no mistake. So tie game. Yoshimura has the hammer coming to 6 right after this.
Okay, nice. ですね。
玉だね。OK。一発目が重くて使ってったらだんだん滑るは変わらない。OK。曲がりも変わらない。OK。ソフトウェイトが使ってったらちょっとストレート気味になってくる。感じはある。
こっちのドローも思ったより曲がってない。
そう、一回キープする。で最後来るけど、ちょっともうちょっと滑れそうかもね。
まだ
ノースイックであれだから。滑れそうね。
よし。ほい。ね。
So seeing the pretty routine blank being made in terms of able to see that whole rock in the last end, Chelsea, do you want to speak maybe a little bit about doing the simple things well?
Yeah, it's one of those things where that looks like a gimme and it's easy to get ahead of yourself kind of in your head where you're sort of already putting that blank on the board before you throw the rock, and that's when you see misses on simple shots. So that staying in the moment is super important, and for me, what I like to see from the skip, and I thought Sayaka did a really good job of it there, is just an extra second to refocus in on what you're doing right now, this minute, not what's going to happen next end, not the fact that you're pumped about being tied with the hammer playing 6, because you're not yet. You're not until you throw that rock. So really important to take that extra second, take a deep breath, be really methodical, both the sweepers, the thrower, the line caller, on where to put the broom, how you want to throw it, what the speed is, the communication, and still get it right. A, to get the result you want, and B, you're still learning. Like there's still 3 more ends in this game. So yeah, that's a great point. Is it looks really routine, and sometimes the problem for the player is if you fall into it being routine, that's when you can surprise yourself with a miss.
Yeah. Yeah, and when people always say you make the easy shots to make the other team make the hard shots, like consistency on those draw to the 8-foot, hitting sticks, those kinds of shots, like going back to the fundamentals, it's huge in terms of being able to be successful.
Yeah, it seems like we talk about how hard it is and how, these teams make all these spectacular highlight reel shots, but I think it was Wayne Mada who I once heard say, if you can draw the 8-foot and hit and stick, you win a lot.
Yes.
You win a lot of curling games by just being able to do those 2 things. And that seems like teams at this level, that would just be a given, but it's not. We saw Team Ueno roll out. That was a guaranteed force if she sticks it anywhere in the house, and she rolled out. So if all you did was hit and stick all game, you probably win that game.
And we just saw it here. So Yoshimura on their first rock of the end, going a bit deep, similar to a couple ends ago, but get the miss right back with that yellow slipping pass to the back 8, right?
Yeah, like that red rock's definitely slid too deep, but then, so now you get caught. We talked about it earlier where, you're playing a freeze, but you see that rock is backing, so then maybe you go, I don't want to miss this light, and if I ever tapped it back, it's okay. Well, it would be okay if the ice was for that. But if the ice isn't for that, then you see what just happened, which is going right by it, and we're going to see it here from Team Yoshimura too. So I wonder if that spot's maybe a little straighter, faster than the other side. We haven't seen this in-turn coming home as much as we've seen the out-turn. So it might just be a little bit different because both teams in back-to-back there being caught by that.
Yeah. Yeah, being in that control zone in front of the tee line is so important. So Ueno has the chance here to rectify the one that's gone back, get a rock up in front, and, as much as we want to be perfect, just getting your rocks in places that make it problematic for the other team. Like, you might let's say you call the freeze here and you want it to be perfect, but just anything in play that can get jammed into something else, like, if you know what your tolerance is, you're a lot more likely to be successful.
Yeah, I can't remember which golfer it was, but there's a very famous golfer who said, golf isn't a game of perfection, it's a game of misses. And he who misses best wins. And I think that's very true for curling a lot of the time as well, is it's great to be perfect, and you do see these players playing in the 90s, but that still leaves you 5 to 10% of shots. If you miss those 5 to 10% the right way, you have a much better chance of winning than if you miss them the wrong way. Like, if you miss the wrong way, you're always in trouble. It's never good. So I think the discussion here is around exactly what, do you want to, like, you could make this double, but I'm not sure that's what they want to do. I think the opportunity here is to play it quiet, kind of play almost a little hit and roll to a freeze. Even if you just got to the nose and set up a little pocket of red rocks back there, I think that would be pretty good, but that's not a lot of ice, so she might be throwing this a bit harder than what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, I do think that they discussed that. It looks like they will just be playing it with more weight, but I do like keeping some rocks around, like you would really like to force here, and you take the pressure off a little bit as you eliminate rocks.
Yeah, like this, it looks like a bad situation because there's 2 red rocks in the forefoot, but given their placement, I actually don't think it's a bad situation at all right now for Team Ueno, so I would be hesitant to throw weight at this, and unfortunately that's going to work out not great by leaving that red in the house and kind of out on the wing where it's in a pretty good spot for Team Yoshimura. I think yellow might be second shot. It's close, though.
It's close, and I think this is something like when I was playing in juvenile into juniors, you see a double, you're like so pumped to throw the double, right? And then you roll out and you miss it and you don't get anything, right? even if you don't make the double, but you stick your shooter in a good place, like, you have to resist the temptation to play something and play it hard just because it's there.
No, you're totally right. And I think the biggest difference that you see between juniors and juveniles and the top men's and women's players is just exactly that. It's playing everything with a little bit less weight than you used to.
Yes. It's just so fun to throw it hard.
I know. That's the problem. One, it's also the highlight reel stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the ones that look spectacular that, you know, we look at them and go like, that's a way easier shot than the draw.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the ones that you see on TSN's, you know, a highlight reel. It's your top 30 curling shots of all time, and they're always these ones where a million rocks fly. So yeah, you fall a little bit in love with the hero shot, and it's not often it isn't the best shot.
Agreed.
See again, where you'd see some broom slams and some chosen some curse words potentially from a lot of teams on that. You just don't get that from these Japanese teams.
No. And you know what? Like, they were going to play the double there, but they played it with weight. Like, if you were trying to throw the double and miss it like that with a lot of weight, you probably would have rolled your shooter out, right?
Yes, for sure.
But because they were playing it to, you know, be mindful of their shooter, that rock now needs to be dealt with by Ueno. So they didn't make the double, but it's not a zero.
No, and I think the important thing to consider is there are situations where it's more important to make the double than it is to do anything else. You don't care if your rock stays in play, you just need to make the double. But I would suggest that more often than not, what's actually more important is sticking your shooter. The double matters less than sticking the shooter, especially early in an end. If you get down to thirds, last rock, skip rocks, that kind of thing sometimes is different. But smart there by Yoshimura to throw that bit less weight, knowing that the more important thing, because now that back yellow stone is wide open.
Yes.
So you bring in, you know, potentially your chance later to eliminate that yellow. You didn't need to do it on that shot. This is a really good one, though, back by Team Ueno. That's perfect.
Yeah, gorgeous shot there. Good thing for Yoshimura is that there's a few rocks left to try to make some kind of noise with the run back here.
Yeah, this is one where you're not actually concerned about losing your shooter as much as you are making noise on that top 4-foot yellow if you ever could. Can't over curl this though. Oh, it's close.
Wow.
Oh, what a shot.
Beautiful.
They're just giggling away.
It's a few times this game that there's been a few rocks in play and a shot like that's been made and just totally simplified the end.
Yeah, great throw, great line call there by Sayaka Yoshimura. Getting the double, you knew it was there, but getting the back one was a bonus. You wanted to make sure you made some noise on that top one, but dream result to have them all fly like that.
Oh, yeah. And that's just a team shot, right? It has to be
100%.
thrown well, swept well, and the line call needs to be right. Any one of those three
and
things.
it's a hard line call. Like those are when you're hitting it close to nose but not quite nose. I find those really difficult. Like a half rock slash is an easier line call than kind of that perfect nose hit. So
because it has to go for, like, as if you have anything on one side or another, the angle that you hit it at is increased because you're further away. So you have to be more precise on the initial contact.
Close to the nose, where if you're hitting less of the rock, you don't have to be quite as precise a lot of the time. So nice roll there back by Team Ueno. Not quite buried, but at least makes this a little bit more difficult. Unfortunately for Team Ueno, we've just seen this spot and this kind of weight so much from both teams, but especially from Team Yoshimura, that it'll like their chances here. It has to stick though, and it looks like it will. So this is when you decide if you're happier with the blank or the 2, because you could go around this, but I think in 6 you're still probably, like, if you're tied playing 7, then you just need somebody to score 1, right? So you're pretty happy with that. If you're 2 down playing 7, then you kind of need to get 3. 2's okay, but not great. So I think smart play here to play this chase rather than switching gears and playing for a force, but running the risk of giving up the deuce.
No, I agree with that. I mean, if Yoshimura gets the blank here, they'll have partial control, right? Because they'll be tied up with the hammer. But that's, I think, in my opinion, is better than now you're 2 down and you have the hammer, but you need to get 3.
Yeah.
or you need to steal in the 8th end.
I think in 8 you'd rather be 2 down with than you would be tied. Maybe not in women's curling, for sure in men's curling. But yeah, in this situation, I think going to 7 tied isn't bad because as you can get the force and you're happy. If you steal, you're happy. You just don't want to let them blank. So you can play a bit more aggressive and yeah, I think that's the move. Interesting here I think for team Yoshimura, you're pretty happy. Even if you get 1, you're not that sad about it. So I like this call, but it could look a little bit surprising because you've got a gimme blank if you wanted it. You could draw to the corner, but I like this. If you get 2, you're pretty happy. And if you only get 1, now what I just said goes away. And for Team Ueno, if you get your 2 and 7, it's okay. And if you blank, it's okay. But if you ever get forced, it's a nightmare. So I like this call from Yoshimura. I think this is what I would do if I were them. So going to try to sink this high in the house, ideally, so that the chase is harder. Just kind of full 8 foot here.
If the guard was a little tighter, you could play the split, but I think it's just a little too difficult with where that rock is.
Yeah, it might be possible. Like if it was to win the game, you might see them play it, but I don't think worth it now when you could put pressure on just by drawing around it. Much easier shot.
So now do they just sink one around?
You certainly could, yeah. Definitely chase is there, so if you were really happy with the blank, you could do that. But if you make this well, you might end up with a steal out of this. So risk-reward here for Team Ueno have obviously decided that it's worth the risk.
It's interesting because depending on how they make it, if you punch that red back, that's for 2. Based on
for sure
where that top rock is. So you kind of want to overbury if you can.
Yeah, you want to be buried around the rock in the 12 foot, not the guard.
Yes.
If you're just buried around the guard, then the run back is there. So you want, like, you'd rather actually have this sticking out on the right hand side as we look at it if you ever could. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to go probably back 4, back 8 for that to happen, but more important here to be buried than to be above the T line, in my opinion.
And back 4 or 8
it's great.
Is great.
It's great.
Yeah, to get your force. And this is a shot where it's like line
matters more than speed.
Yeah.
It just needs to be buried, no matter how deep. As long as it's shot, bury it. Even if that means going back 8, that's okay. It just has to stay shot rock.
Curling very
really
early.
Walking
it'll
sideways,
be nice if it's by, but it's got to be by. I think it'll be okay.
I think it's by.
But what kind of legs does it have?
It looks pretty good.
That's very nice.
That's about as good as you could have made that. Stayed above the T line and is completely buried behind that red.
And got the curl such that you have to basically nose that red.
Yeah,
which would be hard.
You're missing a piece of that red, especially coming again from that left hack. You're missing probably 1/4 to 1/3 of that red. So now that makes that. I mean, I think it's there. They've played it a lot. What I would like to see here is if you play this little tap quite quietly, then even if you split them off, it's pretty good because it puts a lot of pressure on Team Ueno to make something to not give you a million. It looks like she might play the run back here.
I mean, yeah, if it was her last rock, maybe she'd play the tap because she's seen it a bunch and probably a good way to get 2, but I try to avoid all or nothing shots on my first rock.
On your first one, yeah. No, I like this on the first one because worst case you open it up and you hopefully it can get your single point. If you ever play the tap and miss it, and then she goes around again and makes it good, now you're having to make something really hard against 2.
Yeah.
So on her last one, like on hammer, I would like the quiet tap, but on her first one, it's definitely risky. The other thing about hitting 2 rocks is it makes it look like it's a harder shot, but I would suggest that it's an easier shot, because that second rock gives you a bit of margin for error. You could hit this first one a little too thin and still kind of send it back towards the middle, and even if you don't kill that yellow, as long as you move your reds out of the way, and even if you push that yellow back a little bit or something, you open up your scoring area and you make sure you can have the biggest thing for Yoshimura here is making sure she can get her single point.
Absolutely. And in a shot like this where there's a lot of moving rocks, you just have to think about, you just got to hit the top one in the right spot.
Yeah, the results take care of themselves. Unfortunately, that's the wrong way to miss that. You could have afforded to hit it a little thin. Not terrible because it does leave that Yellowstone wide open, but not an ideal result.
Fortunate that her shooter didn't roll too far such that red in the 12 foot isn't usable. Like she can see that red if she needs to use it.
Yeah, she does have a slash.
It'll be an interesting call here for Ueno.
Yeah, I think you're throwing a guard, but I think you want to throw it so tight that she can't run that guard back into it, because right now that's for the shot. Her shot for 2 to me is the angle run back, right on the guard, not on the one in the house, right on the B of ATB there. So if you put this guard, if you just throw a straight guard that's even with that, then she can make that for 2. If you put this guard almost biting top 12, then that run back probably isn't there. Like, you sort of take away both, and it's only a shot for 1 for Yoshimura. But in doing that, if you ever over curl it, then you leave her the out turn chase for 2. So super precise to make it well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, you're on the low side of that A, just biting center line.
Just enough that you take away the line.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to leave her a shot, you'd rather leave her this run back than the chase.
Yes, because we've seen the chase a million times.
So many times, yeah. So tolerance here would be to under curl this rather than over curl it.
Nice to throw a guard as a skip.
It's usually a good sign.
Usually a good sign.
Not always, but usually.
It's a lot of ice.
It is a lot of ice, but we have, again, that's that softer release that they throw, so.
And I think with this kind of weight, you can, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the sweeper swing around to curl.
For sure, yeah.
There she goes. Her body's behind the rock, but if you look at the way her broom's moving now, she's keeping it straight.
This is a straight sweep, yeah, but she was trying to curl it for a bit there. Pretty good. Is there a hole there?
If you absolutely had to play it, I think it's there. The port's set up the right way.
Yeah, it's staggered the right way, but is the run easier than that? It might be. Curled just enough, probably. I think it's maybe there, but I think that this angle run might be the easier way to get your 2. Looks like they maybe agree with me.
And talk a little bit about maybe, you know, the tendency with the run back is just you're throwing a run back, so you throw it super hard.
Yeah, you don't want to throw this hard. I think you'll see this with like a probably 10.5, like a nice control weight, because you're trying to stick it. The only reason you need to throw a run back hard is if you're trying to sort of make a double, you don't want any of the rocks to stay, or you're trying to make a whole bunch of rocks flying around. If it's a single guard to a single rock and you want to stick it, I never would really want to see more than about a 10. The later you throw this, the better chance you have to stick it, as long as you can control the line.
Yeah, and your sweepers are a bit more in play.
Oh, big time, yeah. If you throw it hard, your sweepers can't really do very much. By throwing a control weight, they can carve it if they need to, they can hold it straight if they need to, and you can hit that back rock. You just end up with more margin for error. You can hit that back rock in a lot more places and still stick the run rock somewhere in the house. This looks like probably more like normal, maybe 9.5. They really got to go. This one's curling.
Might get the...
Oh, almost got a little lucky, but that will be a big steal for Team Ueno. They will take a 1-point lead going into 7. Yoshimura will have the hammer when we come back.
So if you're Yoshimura right now, what's going through your head?
I'm feeling like I should be leading by 3 or 4, and I'm one down. It's got to be discouraging. They've had lots of really good chances to not blow this game open, but to take full control. And I mean, hard shots. That's not an easy run back that she just played, but it's got to feel, because they've been the better team through this whole game, so it's got to feel a little bit like they're getting their pocket picked. But you have to sort of park that and go, if you told us going into this game that we'd be one down with the hammer playing 7, we'd be pretty happy. So how are we going to approach it? Do we want to blank? Do we want to try to set up 2? There's 2 schools of thought there. You gotta park the emotional part and just focus on the situation and the factual, sort of how do we win this game now from this position? Because you're not in a bad spot, but it just would feel, because they've been the better team and they've had chances to pull ahead, it feels like you're down more than 1 because you feel like you should be winning.
Yeah, it's interesting, You have to have both a short and long memory in curling.
Yeah.
Because you need to remember, like, oh, I missed this here in the 4th end because of it curled more, or what. Like, you need to remember what's been going on in the game, but you also have to be able to let it go, let the emotional aspect of it go.
Yeah, you need a long factual memory and a short emotional memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this first rock come around did go a little bit deep for Team Yoshimura, but I would suggest by the fact that they're going around that center guard, we tend to think of that as an aggressive call. But with the hammer, I would suggest now that it's actually more defensive, because the aggressive call would be a corner guard.
Agreed. And that's the 3rd time I've noticed the first rock coming around the center, just going a bit deep.
So this used to be, you could argue that they did that on purpose, and they're trying to set up what we call the Donnie B3. Which was made famous by the one and only Don Bartlett, and they would, when he played with Kevin Martin, they would purposely put it back there, hoping that the opponent went, well, it's back there, so we don't need to worry about it, and then they would draw top 4 buried around the guard, and then you'd make a corner freeze, and all of a sudden you're getting 3 out of it. So I don't think many teams fall for that anymore, but it was very effective for Team Martin back in the day, and we of course still use that term, the Donnie B3. So for Team Ueno was not about to get sucked into that, did play the chase on it. So, but a roll out there. So now they're handing it back and forth here a little bit with some slight miscues.
I think that's the thing that was, for me as a player, most frustrating, is when you know that you had opportunities to capitalize and you didn't. If you played a great game and the other team just also played a great game, that's one thing. But if there were opportunities that you had, unforced errors, that's kind of what haunts you a little bit.
I agree. Those are, like, if I just lose to a team that played better than me, it's no fun. You still don't want to lose, but you're like, well, whatever. We played 88% and they played 95. I mean, we play that way against most teams and we win the game. Those were much easier to swallow than when you just basically handed it to them when you didn't make them earn it with those unforced errors, to your point. So now that one's going to undercurl. Interesting that it's sort of like we've played this shot the whole game and they've been making it well, and now all of a sudden we're seeing some heavy and some undercurls. So maybe just a little bit fooled, maybe a slight change in the amount of curl.
Yeah, that was 14-5. Everything's been timing that way. Could have been a bit of a different throw.
Yeah, maybe just a bit more. So, well, and that Ueno soft release, so if they threw then a little bit more positive, it could run straighter on them. That's also a possibility for sure, but either way it is wide open, so we'll see here what Team Yoshimura wants. If they're trying to still set up 2, they'll try to roll under. If they're trying to blank, they'll roll away. This one's moving. So they were trying to roll away, won't get it. We'll hit that on the nose, and so now opportunity again for Team Ueno to make this roll.
Been interesting, a bit of a game of hit and rolls.
Yeah, lots of hit and rolls, you're right, and tends to be that way with the more open kind of defensive game that we've seen. If it was you, Riley, when you were in this situation, what would be your game plan? Would you be playing for the blank, or would you be trying to get 2?
I think I'd be playing for the blank. Because the worst is if you're
forced, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going hard for your 2, you have more rocks in play, but by nature, and then it's easy to get forced. So I would be playing to try to blank it. And, like, I feel comfortable, like, if I'm in the extra and I have to throw, like, my double guards and whatnot, like, so be it. Stealing, especially in an extra, I mean, the stats will say one thing, but it feels manageable and doable, but I'd rather have the chance to try to get my deuce in the 8th end.
For sure. Well, especially now with no tick, the steal, it feels like a more achievable thing with not being allowed to tick those guards. Yeah, I think the thing is, the stats would tell you that you'd rather be one up without than one down with, but it's not a huge difference. It's like sort of a 45-55% chance to win, where if you end up tied without, it goes to an 20% chance to win. So I think it's a risk reward thing. In a perfect world, you'd like to get 2. That would be the better result, but you cannot get forced. So it's a matter of how much risk do you take to get the 2, or do you just play the whole end for the blank?
Yeah. It also depends a little bit on how aggressive the team you're playing is.
It depends on the ice conditions, I think. It depends on the team that you're playing. Like, there's a whole bunch of factors in there, and I think you will see. Generally, teams would have a game plan for which one they want, but like, say the ice is super straight, then I'm probably not going to try to set up my 2, because if I can't get buried, then I'm likely going to get forced. They're going to hit and roll and stick, and then it's a force. Where if with ice like this, I think I would try to set up my 2 early and then just bail early.
Yeah.
But I also think when I say try to set up my 2, I think I would do what Yoshimura did and draw around the center.
Yeah.
Rather than play aggressive for 2, which is the corner guard.
Especially if you're playing an aggressive team, because so often what can happen is they put the center, you put the corner, they go around their center, you go around your corner, and then they just absolutely block up the middle.
Yeah, they throw a long guard, and then if you don't make a double, you're dead. Yeah.
Yeah. You going around your corner, you are basically asserting that you will make the double. Because if you have to have confidence you're going to make a double in the middle.
Yep.
Just hanging on, and they will chase it here.
Yeah, which makes sense if you're playing for the blank. They're happy with the blank, so.
Yep.
This is curling. We'll just hang on at the back.
And now we're seeing this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
I like this.
Yeah.
I think that this is, if you give up 2, you're not that sad about it, so why wouldn't you try to get a force? For me, if I'm Ueno, I would have been playing this end reasonably aggressive for a force, and if you give up 2, you give up 2. Like, you're not going to bring in giving up 3. You're not going to go that aggressive, but I think I would play, like, my approach to this end would be reasonably aggressive, because giving up 2 is still acceptable. And
Agreed.
A force is so good that it's worth taking the chance.
Agreed. Like, if you give up your 2, you're basically just in the situation that Yoshimura is in right now.
Exactly.
Right?
So like, 1 up, 1 down they're so close in the win-loss percentage that I don't think it's worth taking a massive risk for Team Yoshimura in this instance, but it is worth it for Team Ueno, because giving up a 2 is still okay. And if you ever got the force out, and a blank is okay. So there's really not a lot of risk in trying to get the force here, and then if you give up 2, fine. If they blank, fine. You're not really sad about either one of those.
Well done.
Yeah,
there.
Nicely made there. I do think you could maybe chase it with the out-turn, but it's hard. You can't see very much of it.
And typically, you would be drawing around, maybe trying to bite the button, but with how many chases they have made, leaving it a couple rocks up and making it a bit harder, less space by the guard to chase, I don't mind. Like,
no, I like that.
I like that it's only full, again, because the force is great if you can get the force.
Yeah, you're not worried about trying to make her draw impossible. You're just worried about making her throw a draw for a single point. So I think you're right. We've seen them make the chase so much that you're better off being higher in the house. I think they could have left it even shorter than that, honestly. Like, just full 8 foot, get shot. You know that Yoshimura doesn't want to draw around it.
Yeah.
She wants to chase it. So as long as you're buried, it doesn't really matter.
Agreed. And I think that's something where you learn all the basic principles, in like high school chemistry, where every year you learn a new thing that's like, what we taught you last year isn't true, actually. This is what's actually true. But you didn't know enough to know that back then.
Yeah, we couldn't introduce you to that just yet, that concept. Yeah, that's totally what it's like. And it really does change. I remember having that conversation with teams where we would sweep the first rock when we had the hammer, the come around the center guard, we would sweep it to full 4 and then go, great shot. I'm like, it's not, though.
Yeah.
It's a rock too deep still, guys. Like, we need to, that's not precise enough. If we want to compete with these top teams, we have to be better than that.
Yeah.
Straight peel here for Team Yoshimura, which I don't mind that. You're going to make her make a perfect guard, or else, you're going to have a shot for your 2. So for Yoshimura here, you actually could choose to sort of switch gears almost again and play a chase or even a freeze on the back one. But I think after you played that on your first one, you may as well try to make this good, because you've already said we're okay with potentially giving up 2 by playing this shot at all in the first place. So to me, try to put the pressure on, and if she tries a chase for 2, you might steal 1. And even if you give up 2, again, you're not that sad about that. So I think you're gonna see the straight guard here, and I like that call.
Yeah, I think sometimes with strategy, you see someone do something, and then their next call will abandon the principle on
why
which
they did
the first thing.
Totally.
So, if you're going to do it, stick to your plan of why I made this first call, right?
Yeah, I think you see too often the switching of gears because of a miss or because of, a call that surprised you, where you played the draw because you're saying, okay, we're going to try to get a force here, and if we give up a 2, it's okay. So then if you play the other shot that I was saying, if you play the chase or the freeze on the back one, you're going back to, okay, we're just trying to force, and we're not trying to put that pressure on. So I think that, this means it's either 2 or a steal, and you're okay with that, because a steal is really good and a 2 isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Nicely done there. Does probably leave the wrong side exposed from a jam perspective, but it's so close to buried that it's still not bad. Gonna make this a tough. It's there for Yoshimura, but it's hard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because, my first thought was if they make it, they roll, and there's a double there, but the double doesn't roll under the guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So my first just instinct was, oh, well, at least they'll have the double if it rolls open. But you might actually not play for that. You probably play for the roll back under, because you don't want to give them the blank, which is what happens if you do make the double, right?
Yeah, I think it depends how far this rolls. If it goes all the way to sort of edge of the 8 foot, then the roll back is going to be it's going to be so deep in the house that it probably doesn't matter. So then you might see them play the double, but if she only rolls a foot or 2, then I think you'd see them try to roll it back under and say, if we make this, we put the pressure back on. If not, you get your 2, and we're okay with that. So I think it's like, if I'm Yoshimura here, what I would like to do is roll really far.
Yeah.
Like as far as you can, because I don't think you're ever going to see Ueno play the draw bringing in a 3. So they'll chase one of them, and then you have either your blank or your easy shot for a single at least.
Agreed, yeah.
So looking for the big roll, but obviously most important here, priority number 1 is to get this yellow out of the house.
Agreed,
which isn't that easy to do. So need to make sure you accomplish that before you worry about how far you're going to roll.
Nice positive release here.
Yeah, that looked like a good throw. It's close.
Yeah, it's gradual curl here.
Now trying to get it to come over. Need to kill the yellow. Need to kill the yellow. And it's close. I think she will.
Yeah.
Just enough.
12-1-5. And another thing is, you're not hitting that rock on nose, right? So you're transferring less momentum into that rock.
Yeah.
So to actually kill that, you have to throw it just a little bit harder than when you're getting more of the stone, right?
For sure, and it probably also makes it nearly impossible to do what I was saying you would love to do and roll away further, because you need to throw it harder than to be able to do that, because they barely killed that as it is.
Yep.
So if they hit even less of that to get more roll, then they wouldn't have killed the yellow. So well executed there, but it does leave the opportunity. It stayed close enough to the center line that you could make this roll back if you wanted to, rather than throw the double and be fully buried. It will be back T-line, but then you force a bit of a tough shot for Sayaka Yoshimura. The bad news is she basically just made it.
Yeah.
So
I think if I was choosing, I'd rather be Yoshimura here, because even the perfect roll, it could be dead buried, and I think you could still get it for 2.
this one's really curling. Oh, what a shot.
Ooh,
That is
beautiful.
perfect. That's
is
as
beautiful.
good as she could have made that. But it is basically the same shot here for Sayaka Yoshimura. She can see slightly less of it, but it's deeper in the house.
Yeah.
So you have that little bit of extra time to curl. She can throw this exact same weight she just threw. And then once they get by the guard, I can almost guarantee you that as soon as they're by, the outside sweeper will be pounding this to try to get it to curl.
Agreed.
This is one where when I go down to the hack, I would say to whoever that sweeper is on my left,
Yeah.
no matter what, as soon as we're by, just go.
Yeah.
Like head down, just carve, because it's hard to, I mean, it's maybe possible to over curl it and jam it, but it's really tough. So I think they just have to assume they're going to be sweeping it unless they hear otherwise once you're by the guard.
And I think, the typical or traditional school of thought is you know, the person in the house calls the line, the sweepers call the weight, but you actually really do have the opportunity to understand how the rock is moving as a sweeper. And,
Sure.
And be prepared, you know, be close, be ready for the call and anticipate the call. Also, you're the one who's directly over the rock and can see things like the release, maybe even before the person in the house.
For sure, and the center line in this case, like you said before. So sometimes with the center line as that visual, the sweeper can see the rock start to move towards the center line a fraction of a second before the other two people can see that. So you can just be, not that you should be doing it all by yourself, but be extra ready to sweep in that kind of a situation. So opportunity here for two, but it's a tough shot for Sayaka Yoshimura. Needs to squeak by this guard and have the weight right. This one's hanging, and it looks like it's maybe a bit heavy.
But
it's going, it's trying, it's going to be close, got to get there. Going to touch it.
Ooh.
And will not move it far enough, so another steal for Team Ueno. They will take a 2-point lead into the 8th end. It'll be Yoshimura with the hammer.
That was a 12. First one was a 12-5.
That's the difference. It sounds small, but it's not.
ちゃんスプリットと普通の鎌どっちがいい？
この石って乗せの人邪魔になる？
So Team Ueno might be in trouble for larceny here, grand theft of some kind. It's been an unlikely sort of comeback, and they've not looked like steals early, and then it's just turned into a steal at the end. So got to be a bit of frustration for Team Yoshimura, but you do have the hammer here, playing 8, 2 down. So try to set up your 3 early, and as long as you get your 2, you go to the extra and hope for the best. They have probably been the better team, lead to 3rd, and then it seems to be turning at skip rocks here. So how do you approach this for both teams if it was you, Riley?
Well, I think for Ueno, you don't want to take too many big risks, right? Like, as much as you'd like to win the game in the 8th end, giving up a 2 is okay, and having hammer in 9. So I would not be taking many risks if I was Ueno. And with Yoshimura, I think, like, you kind of have to leave some rocks in play and play for your, like, I don't know if I'd be going hard for 3. I'd be making sure that I could get my 2, and if I get my 3, that's the bonus. But you've got 2 teams trying to accomplish diametrically opposed strategies here. Like, Ueno is going to want to be as conservative and as defensive as possible, and Yoshimura is going to be wanting to mix it up. So that's always interesting.
Yeah, I think for Yoshimura, you're early on. The yellow rocks are your friends, so you don't. As much as I don't mind moving them around, but I wouldn't want to eliminate any rocks, really. Try to leave them behind the T line, give yourself lots of backing for freezes and that kind of thing, because you're going to see Team Ueno start throwing corner guard peels here. So at some point, you're likely going to need to make freezes and get sort of half shots from Ueno if you're going to get your 3. But yeah, I agree with that assessment overall in general. I think for Ueno, you're just hitting anything red for the first few, and then trying to make sure you don't give up more than 2, but not ever bringing 3 into play. So
Agreed.
not playing very aggressively. And then for Team Yoshimura, your 3, you're trying to set up your 3 early, but not at the expense of not being able to get 2.
Agreed, yeah. Sometimes when you see people going hard for 3, they'll get their 2 around the corner, but then the middle will be so blocked up that, okay, well, you're 2nd and 3rd, but there's no way to be 1st.
Yeah, that's great, but like, how are you gonna? So unless you have a plan, unless there's like an in offer or something, then it's not very helpful if you end the game 2nd and 3rd shot. You still don't.
Yeah.
That doesn't go on the scoreboard. But I do think that's the strategy early.
Yes.
But then you just have to make sure that you've got a way in to get at the shot stone. So long discussion here. What do you like here?
Well, I would think about, like, that rock that's top 12 foot that's yellow is not really your friend right now, but you could maybe just push that back and roll a little bit towards your corner, but just get your rocks in front of their rocks and try to set up a jam. And like, you might think that the rock in the 4 foot's the big problem right now, just because it's an opponent rock in the 4 foot, but the real issue is the rock that's the top 12. So I would probably just bounce it back to the back 12. I would not, to your point, I would not be removing it from play.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that, and it's for sure it's the trouble rock right now. That rock on the top of the 4 foot is your friend, because it's deep enough that if you make a freeze, it plays really well, and you don't have to tap it far. I like moving this back tee, this top highest yellow, because it also, if you can pump it straight back, there's a bit of a wall building back there, which is exactly what you want early here for Team Yoshimura. I also wouldn't be opposed to throwing 1 around the corner guard first, and then playing that shot next. That's the other option. And it looks like that might be what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
When I think with this one, all you want to do is be 3rd shot. You don't need to be 2nd. You're not going to be 2nd, but you would like to outcount that other yellow. I don't know if they're going to, but in a perfect world, you'd outcount that. But that is almost fully buried, so pretty good result there.
Yep.
If that came another rock deeper, it would be 3rd shot and buried. So just maybe a hair light, but that would be the tolerance on that shot. So not a bad result. And the chase is hard. You can't see very much of that.
Yeah, and to the point about, starting to peel corners, you just just peel, or like, you don't want to get cute is all I'm trying to say.
For sure.
On that right-hand side, and you end up jamming it or doing something where you're making a shot for the other team, right?
Yeah, I think I would throw the inside out in turn and just straight peel that corner guard. You might, because the guards are a little bit offset in terms of depth, you might get the second guard with it.
Yes.
But I think just play a straight peel. You don't want to, because if you run that in, you could run your red into the yellow so easily, and that just wouldn't be what you want. You want to make sure you don't make a shot for Team Yoshimura. So just a straight peel here.
Yeah.
Again, this is due to the scoreboard that you don't need to get fancy. Just kill this yellow or this red guard.
Yeah. Do the simple things well, right?
Yeah.
Make the peel, make it go away.
Make the easy shot and make them make the hard one.
My guess is this is going to curl a little bit. Everything, even the hard ones, are curling, and inside out tends to curl a little more too.
Yeah, and especially for them with the way they throw it. So I'd imagine you'll get a little curl here too. I agree.
I'm guessing 7-5. Let's see.
Yeah, I would agree with that guess as well.
Is it going under?
Oh, it touched it.
Ooh. 7-2-5.
There you go. Really good result. I mean, any thicker, and you pump that guard over, and at least it's your guard then to run back later. But still, a really, again, Team Yoshimura needs to basically make 8 really precise shots here to have a chance to win this game. So for Ueno, just make sure you don't do anything for them, and you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. And we talked about this a bit earlier, but like being smart, not flashy. Like
exactly.
So, sometimes you're just doing the simple things, making them make the hard shot, not doing something crazy. That if you make it, it's amazing, and if you don't, you've opened the door for the other team, right? You just have to be really disciplined. And
yes, discipline's a good word. Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those too where the more of a lead you have, the less cute you have to be. Like, tolerance matters even more, because as long as you miss it the right way, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You just can't miss the wrong way. So it totally changes. And that was not the call. They were trying to hit that top rock and roll. So I think just a bit of an overset on release, and maybe a little bit surprised with how straight it ran. But I mean, worked out pretty good. But that was missed by quite a bit, actually. That's probably, we've not seen Team Yoshimura miss anything by that much this whole game.
Would you have wanted to play hit weight there, or would you have kept those rocks in play?
Yeah, the only reason that I was okay with the weight is because if you're close, then probably what happens is you jam it on your own back one and maybe spill it behind the red. And then that's pretty good, right? If you jam that yellow out a little bit, then now you give your other red here some backing.
I hear you.
But otherwise, yeah, like, I don't love throwing a hit weight at it, but because of that, I was maybe okay with it. The other problem is you're trying to roll 5 feet. So it's hard to do that with quiet weight.
Yeah. Shaping up interestingly.
It is, yeah. It's, I think you're always hitting the shot rock if you're Ueno, but where do you want to roll? Like, what do you want to get to nose? Is that better? Do you want it, because if you're rolling away, you're rolling close to the corner guard, which you don't really want to do, but by nosing it, you're grouping all your yellows together. So is that better?
Yeah. And if you're Ueno, you're always having your eye on that red one in the top 12.
Yes, for sure.
You're not going to do anything with it right now, but you're definitely aware that it's there.
Well, and the nice thing for Ueno is, and that's why they peeled that guard rather than the other corner, is that it's open. So worst case scenario, if you get in trouble late and they're sitting, say, 1 and 3, if you hit that, then there's no chance of Team Yoshimura winning the game.
Yes.
You can always hold them to 2 because that rock is open. So they like that part at least. Trying to get this one to curl. Gonna make it, but she is gonna roll to the exact wrong spot. So opportunity here now for Yoshimura.
Something I'll say about these draws around the corner, we get so sucked into thinking about if the weight's perfect, and we lose the line, and it just curls a little too much, and then it's basically useless because it's not shot and it's on the wrong side, right?
Yeah,
and
for
so you really have to be dialed into keeping this on the pro side.
Yeah, this
of
is
that
a line
rock.
shot more than a weight shot. If you tap it, it's okay as long as you stay shot. You won't be shot rock ever because of that other one on
Yeah.
it. But in this case, as long as you're shot over the one that you're freezing to.
Exactly.
But yeah, you tend to try to make the freeze so perfect that you forget about the line. If you bounce this a bit, it's fine. They really got to go on this one. This looks very light.
15-7. You want to tick off this a little bit.
I mean, that's a great sweep to get a 15-7 to go that far.
Yeah.
But big miss there, really, because now you could still peel, but now if you hit that red, I mean, it's looking awfully tough for Yoshimura. The problem is if you leave the guard there, then that's their only saving grace. So if you hit the red and leave the guard there, then you're going to see them play that come around, and if they make it good, you're probably not in much danger of giving up a 3, but you could give up 2 that way pretty easily.
Kind of hard to peel, though.
It's very hard to peel.
With where those rocks are.
Yeah, very hard to peel for sure.
And sometimes that makes your choice for you.
It can, yeah.
In a perfect world, you would peel the guard if you weren't going to jam it, but in this case, very difficult to make that peel. Like if you play inside out with an out turn, it's probably jamming off the back and rolling
I think it's
in,
always.
right?
I think the only way to make it is pretty thick with the in turn, and you've instead of like
shoot it through the hole.
Yeah, like where you could normally just rip it. If you hit 2/3 of the rock, you're gonna make the peel, and you might chip that other red. Hopefully not in, but even if you did, I mean, you're probably still sitting 3 or 4. So. Or 2 or 3, I mean. So I think that's the only way to make it. But I don't mind this, especially if you could ever make now you've switched gears a bit where before you didn't want yellow rocks in play. But if you could make this roll good into the top of the forefoot, it puts a lot of pressure on Yoshimura with not a lot of rocks left in this end.
Yeah, all that to say that if I could just peel the corner perfectly, that's what I would call. But
yeah,
reality, if I was in their shoes, I would be calling the same shot here. I would be hitting this.
Yep. I would be okay with either one, but the peel is just more tricky than you want it to be. And you can't get them both. So even if you make the peel on the one, she still has the opportunity to play the freeze tap.
Agreed. Opportunity to put some pressure on here if they can make a good roll.
Oh, this is really curling again. She's going to get a piece, I think, but it's going to roll out the other side.
Ooh.
That's not what they would have wanted. Now you can really make a good wall for yourself for Team Yoshimura. Tap this back 2 feet or so. Stay right there, and then there will be a bit of a yellow wall back there. Looking at a hit and roll, that would be a pretty good result as well, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. 5 yellow shot right now, but Yoshimura is still very much in this.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like it should be scary, but actually there's quite a few opportunities here for Team Yoshimura because there's so many yellow rocks in play. The nice thing, maybe that's the wrong word, but this sort of saving grace, like early in the game, if they're sitting 5, you're probably pretty worried. Right now, if you give them 5, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. So it's not as scary because it gives you an opportunity to get your 2. That's why you don't mind leaving rocks around now, where early in the game you would have seen them hitting some stuff to not risk giving up 4 or 5 early and blowing themselves out. But here it's either get 2 or go home no matter what. So if they steal 6, who cares? Like, it doesn't change it.
Yep. That's why 8th or 10th ends are always very interesting to watch.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Curling early here, gotta go to get this by.
I think it's
They're gonna get by, but are they rolling? Oh, it's close, it's close.
That's pretty good. I don't think the chase jams though. I think it's a little too flat.
No, I think the challenge is the run back is so short. Yeah, so they wanted to roll that to almost a corner freeze on the yellow, so that the run back would jam and they might have to play a chase. I mean, it's close to perfect. If it rolls another rock, it's perfect. So hard to criticize too much, but they were sweeping it the whole way, knowing that they wanted it to roll a little bit further than that. pretty good effort, but this is just such a short run back that you have to think, and you don't need to stick it or anything for Team Ueno here, just need to make that red go away.
When you're in the hack, you're really just thinking, okay, this is just a nose hit, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't need to throw this crazy. Just
No, it's anywhere close to the nose. You could hit this probably 3/4 high and be okay, and a shade low, you probably still get it. So just get it somewhere near the nose, get the broom in the right place, and you should be in pretty good shape and one step closer to handshakes. And this needs to curl though. Oh, I think she's okay.
she's got it. It's gonna push out into the underneath, yeah, but that's all right.
Yeah, not bad, but it does leave an opportunity again here for, it's only ever going to be a 2 now, of course, but the 2's not dead yet. Would have liked to get closer to nose with that, but you don't want to be cute either. Like, you
Yeah.
can't afford to ever over curl it. So I think smartly sort of iced and thrown for Team Ueno, but opportunity for Sayaka Yoshimura here. You maybe can be shot, but I would be less concerned about that and more concerned about being buried.
If she ever goes deep on this, do you think Ueno would freeze on it?
Yeah, I do. I think because worst case scenario, you're going to the extra end.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth the risk to maybe win the game outright.
Yeah.
And worst case, you go to the extra. So I think you definitely don't want to be deep here. If you're full top 8, as long as you're second shot and buried, you're happy.
Yeah.
And if you're higher, even if you're not fully buried, as long as you're second, it jams always on that yellow anyway. So that wouldn't be too bad either. But in a perfect world, I think you're sort of biting 4-foot depth, you know, just top tee and fully buried behind this guard. And you probably see, if you're shot, then you might see Ueno look at some kind of tap or a run back or something. But if you're second, she probably just draws to sit 2 around it and tries to even them up, and so that there's no double. But at least you make her make a precise shot.
Oh,
14. It's there on its own. It's gonna sit for shot. Ooh.
Oh, it's not
Second
even
shot.
second.
Now
That's, I mean, I think that's game over.
Yeah.
Now you'll see. They won't shake hands just yet in case something
Crazy
completely
happens.
untowards happens here. But
yeah.
I mean, I think if you throw this away, I think the game's over. Like if you don't throw for Team Ueno here, I don't think that there's anything to win. Maybe the outside red, really hard.
Like this and then across the house
Yeah,
double.
like the run
yeah,
double. But I think you might need to borrow like a Benoit Schwartz or Jason Gunlickson to throw it for you, because
Yeah.
it probably needs to be, or I mean, Nicodemus here, he could probably make it, but
Yeah.
it probably needs to be like a 5 seconds or less kind of a hit to make that. So, I mean, if you lob this in anywhere for third shot, as long as you don't leave a triple, the game's over. So, like, I would be playing this as a freeze to that back red.
Yes.
Because the only thing you can't do is be short here and half open, and then you might leave the triple.
90-degree angle and
Yeah.
just set up the triple, but
Yeah, it's all those 45 degrees that you want to avoid, and you could put this in a place where
Yeah.
the triple is definitely makeable. So just don't miss this light, I think, and you're okay.
which is very often not the case.
No,
But-
yeah, usually heavy's not your tolerance, but in this case
Yeah.
it is. This one needs to curl.
I think this will be good.
Yeah, I think she's going to touch it, so she'll be fine. So that'll be probably just Velcro. I don't think there's anything you could even attempt here for Yoshimura, and it will be handshakes. So a big win for Team Ueno over Team Yoshimura in a reasonably unlikely fashion. A lot of late steals and a bit of a comeback. So they'll be happy with that.
So the second B semi will be a matchup between Yoshimura and our winner of our earlier game this morning, which was Morrison. So that'll be exciting.
So come join us later. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Autumn Gold Curling Classic from Okotoks, Alberta. I'm Chelsea Carey. For myself, Riley Backer, and our crew. Join us later for the next game.